I was about to have the show aired on Top Chef and whatnot, I had returned from filming, and I was let go from my restaurant in Austin, and
Before it came out.
before it came out, and the primary reason for that was I had a relationship with an employee of mine.
Okay.
Obviously outside of my marriage.
Painful Lessons Podcast. I'm Tyler Ramsey, and we own mistakes. And today I have a guest with me, Gabe Erales. And together we're going to own mistakes and we're going to celebrate victories and all kinds of stuff. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, super, super incredibly honored to be here in this beautiful space. Amazing artwork, and get ready to have a good time chatting with you.
We were connected because we have a mutual friend, Amy Carol Wolf, who's spectacular, and she runs a nonprofit that you're a part of and I'm a part of.
Correct, and your brother's on the board.
And my brother is on the board. Tell me about it.
Amy was a founder. She recently stepped out as a founder and the director, and then I took over. I was kind of at a point where I was closing a restaurant in Austin, and I had been involved in the nonprofit called Hands Offering Hope, which was founded in 2015.
Yeah.
And when I stepped in, coming from the Culinary Advisory Board, Amy approached me and said, "How would you feel about taking over the organization, running it, and kind of giving your thumbprint and your vision on it?"
Because you're a master chef.
Well, I'm not a master nonprofit runner.
Yeah, but you are a master
director.
chef.
Correct. Yeah, I'm an avid cook, I like to say.
Yeah.
I love Mexican culture, Mexican cuisine. It's where my family's from. That's what I grew up kind of living and breathing, and that's really shaped my career and my vision of things. So coming into this role, we wanted to just rebrand the organization. Initially, when the foundation was started, it's based in Cancún, Quintana Roo, which is very close to Cancun.
Oh, wow.
And the primary mission when they started was just supporting the community, Amy and her husband, Ariel, and that was through a mixture of mentorship, classes, empowerment, engagement. And I think down the road, as things progress and they realize, we're in an area where the hospitality is booming all around us. There's this, multi-million-dollar, practically billion-dollar hospitality and service industry business, based around culinary and experiences, things like that. Why not take something that is in the DNA and blood of a lot of these communities and families and really take an opportunity to codify it and train them, and not so much give them the tools they need to leave their communities or leave their home, but find jobs in their backyard that are unprecedented. Yeah. So there's the focus shift to culinary. My thought on the approach was, hey, let's find a name that lines up with the organization and what we're doing and what our mission is and what we want to give to these kids. And we arrived at Oído, and Oído is, the terminology for yes chef in a kitchen, American French kitchens. Oui chef is the French, yes chef is American, and in Mexico it's Oído, which is, the way of addressing the chef and saying, yes, I hear you, yes, I understand you. And that's kind of our approach to this organization. It's
so hip. It's so incredibly timely. It's like do all of these amazing cooking shows. They all say yes chef, and I think it's so awesome. And I love the discipline of a kitchen, and I love the fact that you're telling these kids, don't just be a cook, but listen, what if you do the absolute greatest job possible and you become a Jedi at this? You won Top Chef.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah. We're not talking about runner-up. You won.
I did, and I was, I believe the only Mexican American to ever win it. It was all based largely on approach to Mexican cuisine and kind of my vision on that during the show. And it was during an unprecedented time of COVID as well.
It's killer that you're giving back this way.
Yeah, I think, as I traverse my career and my life, and I'm a father. I think I find the most joy in kind of the same way that you raise kids and you shape them and you give them that path and guideway. I've been impacted by so many of the cooks that have cooked for me. even if they don't work for me anymore. You build these relationships, and it's how you help set them up and provide mentorship and guide them and lead them
Sure.
to be the next leaders of the generation. And also it's the same way that you talk to your kids and you teach them these life lessons of like, hey, I made this mistake in my life, I don't want you to do that. It's the same thing that parallels and channels that into the kitchen as well.
Dude, there is a thought that I have. So I'm really passionate about this area of California called 29 Palms. It's in the Joshua Tree Desert. It's in the Joshua Tree area. The food mostly sucks out there. They have a few killer restaurants, but I've always thought that it would be such an interesting idea for someone like you to go to all of the Mexican restaurants and go, you're blowing it. You are absolutely blowing it.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah. And probably for the same amount of money that you're spending, you could be delivering an incredible product, because there are some balls being dropped.
Yeah.
And it's so pointless. I can't imagine that the price point is so radical for this type of basic, food, that it would be worth taking risks, or not taking risks, cutting corners.
Yeah.
That it would be worth cutting corners.
No, for sure. And there's that, that being said, I think that there's so much beauty in the simplicity of approaching food from any type of cuisine.
Yeah.
So, there's no need to overdo it, over manipulate it. And if you understand the basics, you can really make something out of nothing.
I love it when Chef Ramsey goes to I can't remember what the name of his show is. And then he goes to these restaurants or he goes to these restaurants and he's like, why are you microwaving this food? It's so pointless. You could, for the same amount of time, you could be creating, like, you could be making apple pies from scratch.
Yeah.
And you could be doing this. It's like, why are you serving this stuff? And I just think that type of makeover.
Yeah. Well, I've never been to Joshua Tree, and I'd love to find a way.
This is a good show. Makeover a whole city's cuisine.
Yeah.
I'm going to pitch this to somebody.
Let me know. I'll be there in a heartbeat.
It's a spectacular idea.
Yeah. Not
just a couple of restaurants, but turning an entire town into a food destination by whipping up every little restaurant.
What are they? Is it just a mix of different types of restaurants there?
Yeah, there's a Thai place, and then there's a Mexican place, and then there's a Chinese place. Don't get me started on the Chinese place, and a Japanese place, and they all are just meh. And then there are a couple of incredible restaurants, but only a couple. There's one called Kitchen in the Desert. They serve Trinidadian food.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, it'll blow your mind.
Amazing.
But that guy has no interest in talking to the other people. It just doesn't seem like something that's happening.
Well, they've got a monopoly on the market.
Oh my gosh. And my brother Ashton Ramsey I have another brother.
Okay.
He is on kind of the board of cultural affairs. I'm going to passionately talk to him about this.
I would love that.
I mean, it's just, how long are you in town?
I'm actually out today. Yes.
You're just in and out for this.
I'm in and out. Yeah.
Okay. I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah. Well, I'm super honored to be here.
How did you get into who are your food idols?
Well, I think my food idols versus how I got into it are two separate conversations.
Start with food idol. I'm kind of curious immediately about food idols.
Yeah, I think food idols for me. Jacques Pepin. I grew up, not intentionally watching him on PBS shows cooking, doing these classical French recipes and things like that, and I was just intrigued by his technique and his craft, as you will. Much like an artist, it was less of him cooking and him doing these effortlessly movements of butchering a chicken or making a terrine or something like that. Classical French technique. So it was really, really cool to see. And I had no idea at the time growing up, but I was very intrigued, and I was like, that really got me excited to go in the kitchen and try and cook something, especially when I come from a huge family of 5 brothers and a sister. So there was, 9 of us, including my parents. And she was always cooking up so much stuff, and it was, it was a mix of Mexican food and like Lebanese, Middle Eastern food, which I always thought was Mexican because I didn't know that it was influenced by that at the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, Jacques Pepin is the one. People that have impacted my life, are places that I've worked that I've took away something. Rene Redzepi in Copenhagen has always been a really, really big inspiration for me, and having just even the small amount of time to work for him has really impacted my career. A chef in Austin by the name of Jesse Griffiths, who's an incredible chef and just, a master of knowledge. And, I worked for him for some time in Austin, and, what I took away from him and just how he approaches food and ingredients was really impactful to me. So I wouldn't say like, my idols are always these big name chefs, but it's more of people that I think have left a fingerprint or a lasting impact in my life.
Groovy. Now you're not jumping to say Anthony Bourdain or you're
No.
What about
I think people like,
Ratatouille.
Ratatouille is definitely in the pinnacle of my Mount Rushmore of chef faces.
What a great movie.
Yeah, a great movie. And then recently we went to Disneyland, and we took the kids on the Ratatouille ride, which was a whole other experience. It was incredible.
Great.
It was incredible. You're like, sliding around in a mop bucket and you're feeling water going on, and then you're under the stove and the top of you gets hot, and it's like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And that movie never gets old.
Never gets old.
Never gets old. It's incredible.
What do you think the best TV show, the best food TV show is? Or movie?
Food TV show.
Ratatouille?
Movie Ratatouille by far. I love that. And I just think that, it tells so many stories in so many different ways and is approachable for any age group or any genre.
Yeah.
I really thought that No Reservations was the best food show.
Oh my gosh.
It was real. It was honest. It uncovered culture.
He's a hero.
He's a hero. He's an icon, and he really changed the way people think about and approach food beyond going to the hottest places in every city and whatnot.
Man, it's so heartbreaking that from what I've surmised, Bourdain was going through, just dealing with his own depression. I'm sure some of it was maybe chemical, and it was very difficult for him to switch his thinking. But it sounds like he also was dealing with a really heartbreaking situation with a woman that he loved. Her name was Asia. Do you remember what her name was?
I don't remember her name, but I do. I remember.
Oh my gosh! And she had just linked up with some other guy, and some photos had come out, and that's really so rough. And man, if it's like the right phone call could have, picking up the phone or something could have switched all of that, and we'd still have him.
And it sounded like, at that point as well, he was what appeared to be happy in another relationship at the time as well.
That he was in another relationship?
Yeah.
Asia Argento.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole story, but man, she really seems like a heartbreaker.
Clearly.
Yeah. She was and then she was also involved in this really awkward scandal with like a young kid that he was paying off. The kid was gonna rat her out and say, we had a relationship when I was a minor.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
And he was paying the kid off. I can't remember what that kid's name was. And then that kid tried to get a lot of sympathy in Italy of all places. And everyone's like, if you think we're going to give you any sympathy, the fact that you hooked up with some older girl when you were like 17, you were looking at the wrong people.
Especially in Italy.
Yeah. You, my friend, have chosen the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really tough. What an incredible
I wasn't aware of that. That's
impact that guy had, though. Just to go around and be curious about the world and to love things. Man, to take your own life is just one of the most, it's crazy to me that we have the ability and the desire can come into our heads to push a self-destruct button.
Yeah, and I think that, now more than ever, we're seeing more and more of that in the hospitality industry.
Explain.
And there's so many, you read about it all the time, or you at least a handful of people through one degree of separation of chefs or cooks taking their lives.
Is it
And
that
it's
much?
it's 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 the pressure of what am I doing, where am I going, the lifestyle of long days, late nights, substance abuse,
Oh
and
gosh.
how people battle that and deal with it. And there's been a lot of shifts in the industry
Yeah.
to counteract that lifestyle and that balance, and a lot of people are becoming more health conscientious and fit focused, and doing things like instead of after work going out and getting drinks or whatever that is, knowing that you're going to go home and rest, and wake up early and go for a run, or go to a
Yeah.
yoga class, or go to a CrossFit gym, or things like that. And really shifting the focus of, pissing today's earnings away to how can I make a better version of myself for tomorrow. And I think that,
Totally.
there's a lot of different movements all over the US that are really, really starting to focus on that, because, it's not getting any better, and people are still, taking their lives, and there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress, even at the higher levels of chef ownership, now that Michelin star ratings are coming into different cities of the US, and there's so much pressure to get a star, to retain a star,
Yeah.
and it becomes your livelihood. And what people don't really understand is that doesn't define you, who you are. Your
Part of me
person.
thinks if you've ever had a star, you're like, I got a star. And
Yeah.
then if you can't retain, be like, honestly, who cares?
Who
I'm just
gives
gonna
a shit?
say I got a star.
Yeah. Yeah. You achieve that pinnacle,
I
and
got it.
and I think
Do you
that
still have it? I don't know.
yeah,
I just wanted you to know that I got it at one point.
I think that, it should be that way, where, you wake up and you do what you do, and you be yourself, and you put your best foot forward and bust your
Yeah.
ass, and whatever happens, happens.
Sure.
If it's a list of accolades, great. If not, there's more important things.
Was Top Chef, did that feel like I spoke to somebody about an award. It was Robert Downey Jr. actually. I go, "Hey, you won an Oscar. How different do you feel?" And he goes, "Well, it is something I want. And, it's something I did want." But is like it's kind of like a new truck. I'm gonna really enjoy it for a while. And but Jim Carrey has he has this great speech where he was winning his second Emmy, I think, and he goes, or Golden Globe, and he goes, now I'm Jim Carrey, is two-time Golden Globe winner, and he goes, I'm gonna try to win one more, and because then it will be enough. And that's such a joke. But was Top Chef the kind of thing where you win, you're like, no, that fills me.
Yeah, I think that Top Chef was it was such a unique situation for me. Um, it was, January, February 2020. The world had just started shutting down.
Yeah.
I was at a restaurant in Austin. We had just come off some great accolades of, best new restaurant in Texas, best new restaurant in the US with Esquire, and, carrying a lot of momentum. And then boom, like COVID started happening, restaurants started closing. We're trying to figure out our plan of what we're going to do as a restaurant. First and foremost, we want to take care of our people. So, how do we keep employees employed? And
Yeah.
how do we,
How many? Tell me the name of the restaurant and how many employees
it
you had
was
employed.
it was a Commodore Restaurant, Comedor, and we probably had 30 to 40 employees
The
total.
and it was considered to be the best new restaurant in Texas.
Yeah, at that time, and we were on an Esquire Best New Restaurant list in the U.S. So,
It's killer.
so
It's
it was a
between Houston, Dallas,
sure,
and Austin.
yeah.
Dear God, you have some killer restaurants.
Yeah, and I think that we had a unique approach to Mexican cuisine, in a modern form. So it was an interesting time, and as we beginning to shut down, I get an email from somebody that says, "Hey, one of your peers in the industry thought you would be a really good chef candidate for Top Chef. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?" And I was like, "Well, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. I don't know when the restaurant's going to open again and what's going to happen." I said, "I'll go through the process and see what happens."
Yeah.
And um, so that was February, and I'm going through these interviews and these applications and things, and here we are. We end up in July that year, and we've have already done our restaurant pivots and multiple things, and you know I arrived to the point where they're like, hey, you're going to be one of the contestants. We're going to film in
Yeah.
Portland. You're going to leave in August, and we're going to film. And packed up, flew to Portland, and we were staying in secluded hotel rooms, having COVID tests every other day at 5 a.m. and all that. And I got there, and I stopped. I'd never really watched Top Chef religiously. I would watch some seasons here and there. Obviously, I went back and started watching again to study. And,
Is it a real, like, do you think that it really is an accurate way to gauge a cooking competition? Is it kind of make sense?
I think that there is some very, 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 very good portions of the show that measure your ability to cook, to think on your feet, and to really express yourself as a chef.
Yeah.
I think that people that are, that are the most successful on that show are the people that have their own, quote unquote cooking voice.
Right.
If you go there and you try and cook for the judges, if you're trying to cook specifically for Tom or for Padma because you think what they like, then you're going to fail. But I think if you, and I felt that's what I did, is I went up there and I cooked for myself and for my people and my culture and my family, and it brought me some victories, and I was able to make it to the end.
Yeah, I find even if I'm doing a commission for a client, I can't paint for the client. I have to paint something. I can think of the client, but I can't try to
exactly
cook for the client.
Yes,
I have to cook something that would be really proud of. Obviously thinking about the client, but it's very different than going.
Yeah, I think it's basically, and in that perspective, it's working within a set of constraints.
Yeah.
But in your own voice, and then for the purpose of talking about Top Chef, it was working within the constraints of whatever a challenge is, but still being true to who you are and what you want to project as a chef is super important. And so I got there and I was just like, well, shit, I don't want to be the guy that gets out on the first episode, eliminated the first episode.
Oh, be so embarrassed.
And I was like, that's like the worst thing you can do.
If you're a professional chef and you get booted first.
So then it's, so as every episode goes by, you're like, well, I'm not the second one to get eliminated. I'm not the third. I'm like, all right, if I'm the fourth, fifth, or sixth,
win this bitch.
Yeah. So, and before you know it, the days were incredibly long. It was usually like a 5 a.m. call time, and you'd go till like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And very little downtime, and it was more mental than physical at times. And before you know it, you arrive at the end and you're just like, holy shit, and you're cooking with all of these incredibly talented, applauded chefs and whatnot, and you just it seems very surreal at times.
It's pretty badass. Do you so I know we were talking about a couple of epic restaurants in Dallas that I know about, Javier's, Mi Cocina. Those places are like legends in Texas. What are there things that you go, and you probably have a ton of respect for them as a business. But you also look at them and be like, dude, I would do this with the.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of in the cook chef nature of like,
what would you do differently?
What would you
those restaurants?
Yeah. I mean, I think that with those specific style of restaurants, I think that they have their place in what they do, and they're, they have their following, and that's why, for our restaurant project in, just outside of DC called O Mateo, that's what was really fun about that project for me, is it was like whimsical Tex-Mex. And prior to that, I had been so hyper focused on like regional Mexican cuisine. I mean, I travel to Mexico so much, and I'm like in these small towns and learning from the doñas and the cocinas tradicionales, all of these, traditional cultural recipes passed down. And I like, it's always exciting to me to like, holy shit, how can I bring this back and share this with the world who might never come and experience this, but also give it in a format that's approachable and understandable. So I think when you go to a place like Javier's and Mi Cocina, I mean, there's a touch of Mexican or Tex-Mex soul that sits somewhere in there, but it doesn't just stand out to you, but it's but they've done it in such a format that people are like, this is what I want to do on my Friday. I want to go get that margarita. I want to go get those steak tacos or whatever that is.
Steak tacos.
Yeah, Cuisine. I mean, I remember, whenever we'd go, I went to UT Austin, and whenever we'd go to Dallas for the Texas-Oklahoma game, that's a huge game there. There's always one night where we were at Cuisine, having what are the Mambo taxis? Is that what they're called?
Incredible. Oh my God.
Yeah. I forgot about that name till now.
Speaking of, sorry, my mic wasn't on.
Yeah.
Valle Guadalupe. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on some of the best food I've ever had. It's done on the best.
Yeah, the Valle de Guadalupe. I mean, the Valle de Guadalupe is incredible. I mean, you out there in Tecate and all of that, there's some incredible restaurants and breathtaking wines, and Mexican wine is also having such an incredible moment.
It is.
My wife and I had an amazing meal at Fauna, and Chef David and his wife are doing something incredibly special there. And there's so much growth happening out there, but I think that there is, that's like one of the bigger spots in Mexico right now that's been, steadily becoming uncovered and whatnot. And it's really, really cool to be able to blend wine with cuisine, and they go just really so hand in hand. And you have access to all that amazing Baja coastal seafood as well.
Dude, you could crush a Tex-Mex restaurant out here in my neighborhood, Mar Vista. You would print money out. I'm convinced. I think that it's so badass to just be like, oh, my friend is a master chef. Yeah. Do you know any good cooks? Oh my God. I know my friend is a master chef.
That is pretty badass, by the way.
It's pretty badass.
Yeah.
Top of the top of the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that your restaurant in DC is killing it. I have, as we were chatting, there's something that comes in my head more than I would really think that it would. And it's a completely different subject. Because we've been talking about heroes and stuff. And at one point, a hero of mine was Kanye West. And Kanye West, he wrote a gospel album that was really important to me in a time that I was reaching out spiritually, and it fed me, and I have this amazing relationship with God, really direct, really tight relationship with God. And this album that he put out was like a big part of that. And even when I was kind of grinding to become an artist, to really create a series of work that I was proud of, I listened to College Dropout, for example, and it just inspired me. I've listened over and over and over and over.
I mean, who didn't?
Most banger album ever.
I think about, every time I see, stuff on the media about Kanye West and his current state of where he's at and what he's doing.
Asshole.
And it sucks, because
it sucks.
There is such a small time frame where I remember just thinking, that guy is such a badass, and he's writing lyrics like nobody else. He's creating beats like nobody else, and it's just like that was a time where you could put College Dropout on, and just get really, really inspired and get after it. And I'll never forget that album. The second album as well.
He rarely misses. In the song "Runaway," dong, dong, dong. I mean, just kills. And then this turn, he just to become so overwhelmed with pride, and then to let your ego just turn you into this monster. And of course, there's obviously a mental health issue, but I was really been so angry about it. Silly, right? I've only met the guy briefly before, and in person, my only experiences, I was invited to a couple of his Sunday services. Oh my gosh. And that just filled me with so much love.
Wow.
It's amazing. But I've really had this incredible resentment, but just recently, I just dropped it. And this is why. He sat down and created a list of all the people that have betrayed him.
I saw that.
Gross.
I saw that.
On this list, he had his daughter. His 15, I think, year old daughter.
Yeah, Northwest.
He had Kim. He had Harriet Tubman. I don't really understand the context of that. Right? Crazy.
Pusha T.
But
that's so weird.
But so, and I have this buddy that I think has a Jedi attitude about this. Scooter Braun, who his grandparents were in freaking Auschwitz, and if there's anyone that should have a resentment about this, it should be him.
Sure.
Because obviously, Kanye mentioned stuff about hit. I mean, I worry about even being shadow banned by saying Rotzi or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
this anti-Semitic comments were a little bit over
insane. Okay, so when I saw that he was sitting down and putting out a list of all these people he had a resentment, I just thought any ill will or any anger that I have towards him is dwarfed by what's going on in his own head. Because anyone that holds on to resentment, they say that resentment is like drinking poison to make another person sick. And that's what he's doing again and again and again. And it just made me think, dude, what? Any anger or resentment, I'm like, I would be throwing a tiny drop of water in a bucket into the ocean of what he's going through. Like, why waste a second?
Yeah.
Took me a while to get there. It was kind of a silly thing that I had in my head, but I was just, man, it hurt. It really hurt to see someone that had been a big part of my life just act like such a jackass.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's mental illness, or what do you think?
Do what?
Do you think it's mental illness, Kanye, or is it?
It's clearly there's a ton of mental illness involved, but it feels more ego, a runaway ego, than anything else. So there's some mania, and but it's like ego and entitlement, and I mean I don't mean to poke fun out of it, but his mom died of all things by, having a million plastic surgery things at the same time, and
superficial.
So, it's like so much life has been wasted.
Yeah.
Silly.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because in the culinary community, there's so much of a stigma as it relates to chefs and egos, and and how much that can really can shape your career as a chef is
right.
Really, who are you? Who are you? Are you yourself for an ego? Are you doing things for ego? Are you trying to win awards for your ego? Are you trying to win awards for your staff, for your business? What it is, and and at the end of the day, it really can cripple you in so many ways.
My ego is not my amigo, and that is for sure. For sure. That's a lesson I have to learn every now and then.
Yeah.
Okay. Show is called Painful Lessons, and we talk about. I like talking to people that have developed a sense of humor about obstacles they've overcome.
Sure.
And I have really close friends that have overcome these incredible obstacles, and they become heroes. You had a real kind of public struggle. Will you tell me what that was?
Yeah. So I, right around the time that I was about to have the show aired on Top Chef and whatnot, I had returned from filming, and I was let go from my restaurant in Austin, and
before it came out,
and the primary reason for that was an inappropriate relationship with an employee.
What does that mean?
I had a relationship with an employee of mine.
Okay.
Obviously outside of my marriage.
Dude, when I worked at a restaurant, everyone was humping everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone was humping everybody. It was crazy. I was working for Mondo's Italian restaurant, and the Aloisio family owned and he had 3 sons, and they were all humping everybody. And then the waiters were humping everybody. The dishwashers were not humping that much, to be honest, but everybody else smash all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of that lives within the hospitality culture. It's shifted quite a bit, but I think you're spending so much time with certain people and on a daily basis, and it's very easy for those lines to become crossed and blurred. And for me specifically, it was a fail in judgment and leadership, and I think it was a lot of what you were talking about, just like what ego can do to you. and
Yeah.
momentum and things and how it affects your life and what you perceive as reality and what you perceive as, not reality in some
Sure.
extent. And I think, something that that had happened for me was I had kind of lost a little bit of grasp of reality with my ego, and it was treated as an outlet of my stress and my personal demons and my personal battles. And I think that, it's a lot easier for that to be amplified when you're in the public eye and you're, on the verge of a momentous success ride. So it was an extremely painful lesson for me to learn and grow. And, most of all, I think what crushed my soul and my heart was to put my family through it
Course.
publicly. And, my wife has done nothing but support me and be there by my side, even, when we aren't, you know, having seen eye to eye, like most marriages are never perfect.
Yeah.
But she has always showed up for me, and she made a lot of sacrifices for me in my career, and I'm in internal debt to her for that. And I think that for
How are
her,
you with your wife right now?
we're amazing. Yeah,
killer.
we're amazing, and we really took what we could from this and made it something bigger than both of us. And
That's
and
awesome.
I think a lot of this really was at that point understanding that there's so much, while I love restaurants and I love cooking and I love being a chef and I love creating and I love being a mentor, um, you know, I did fail, and I failed publicly, and I failed and I never really,
Why did it get to be such a public thing?
well, I think a lot of that had to do with, the fact that I never really had a public platform to speak.
Okay.
I was under contract by NBC for Top Chef, and they basically allow you to do interviews when they allow you.
Okay.
They didn't want me to do any interviews. They
No,
didn't want me.
you're not going to be
They
doing
didn't want me
interviews.
talking. They didn't want me releasing a statement. So I basically was just kind of taking the blows and letting the internet and the world make their own judgments and say what they want. And I kind of had to stand there and just take it for what it was. I finally got to a point where I was like, hey, I'm gonna release a statement. You guys do what you got to do.
What did the statement say?
That I get that I failed as a leader, I failed as a husband, and I made a mistake.
Yeah. Were there accusations that it was beyond a relationship? Were they like
Yeah, I mean, there's
real pushy or something?
no. I mean, there was things said from all over that
Yeah.
had no bearing in truth. At the end of the day, there was never a public statement made by anyone,
Yeah.
other than my employer.
That is crazy that it became such a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I again,
Human guy acts like a human person. Human person acts like it should be the news should be
yeah,
human person act like a human, and then we're going to leave this to the humans to deal out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, though, I'm incredibly thankful for everything that happened.
Yeah.
It obviously
That's such a common
it
thing.
it actually impact. I mean, I understand, and I think about how it impacted my career negatively, and a lot of opportunities I missed because of it. But at the end of the day, I know that it transformed my path and my trajectory of who I am and what I want to do and what's important to me.
That's amazing. And your wife is probably like, I'm going to punch you in the face 20 times. And then I'm going to take a breath and realize that I love you and we have this amazing marriage. And then I will probably punch you in the face 20 or 30 more times. And then I'll say that I'm not going to anymore. And then I'll have a glass of wine and punch you in the face only 5 times. And then eventually I'll get to 1 time. And then we will have such a foundation that we will have built over that it becomes something really special.
Yeah.
So rock on.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been the most difficult thing I've taken on in my life, and her as well. And it's affected us in ways we don't realize, until they surface, down the road. Things have come up and we're just like, whoa, this is just like unpacked shit we're dealing with that we're working through, and but at the end of the day, like I said, we've found out how much stronger it makes us as friends, as a couple.
Don't I know?
So it's, again, I'm actually very thankful of the path that I've taken and what I've learned. Obviously, like, I don't wish that type of pain or
Yeah.
trial or tribulation with anyone, but it's been a growth period, and it's, exactly that, a painful lesson. And I hope to take the best of it, of what I can, and carry it on and transform
Sure.
other lives with it.
I'm in recovery for alcohol and drugs, and I put my wife through a period of real stress as a result, when she was kind of frustrated, trying to figure out how to deal with a husband that she loved, but also had was kind of dealing with his stuff, and then as a result of, you know, um, let's say the side effects of drugs and alcohol, was also sometimes acting irrationally and stuff. And so it's a lot of pain that I put my family through. But hey, all I know is we are in the best place. I never imagined we'd be as happy as we are today. I just, in my wildest dreams, I never thought that I would have a relationship that was this easy and this kind of peaceful and passionate. And I don't think I could have got here unless we'd have been through all the stuff and overcome that stuff together.
Yeah, no,
So,
for sure. It's I equate it to, riding through that storm on that old sail ship, and then you break through the waves and see the sunlight and the clouds clear, and
yeah,
it's peaceful waters, and it's a different ocean.
yeah. There are so many nonprofits that are just like jerk jobs, and reasons to have parties, and I should say excuses to have parties. And uh, there are a lot of causes. Because I've been involved with so many causes that are incredible. Um, I don't just like offer just respect out of nowhere for causes, but I love the direction of where your nonprofit is going, and I think that it can do a lot of good.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned they're like, I one of the biggest, I mean, the biggest challenge of a nonprofit is obviously fundraising, raising money, and things like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
I have friends that are in nonprofits, and they're all very different, organizations, and what they serve and who they serve and things like that. And I'm always amazed at, how, one nonprofit can be for, cause XYZ, and they can raise $10 million.
Yeah.
And then, this one can raise, $100,000. And, here we are, we're trying to, break the $1 million mark. And,
Sure.
and it's just really interesting how people perceive the missions and the causes of different foundations and nonprofits. And I think, it's been an incredible journey for me. I was a volunteer to the organization before coming on full time.
Yeah.
And I never thought in a million years I'd be here. I've had such a different career trajectory. I started cooking when I was 15, working in restaurants in high school, college, graduated with an engineering degree from UT, worked as an engineer, worked as an engineer and a cook, a chef for years and years before I finally was like, all right, this is what I need to focus on. But, here we are, and I finally found something that for me ties me back to my culture, my family in Mexico, and I'm so in love with the idea of like meeting these incredibly talented families and kids that may never have the opportunity as some of the other people in the world. And people like yourself, or like me, or a network of friends can flip the switch and transform their lives in an instant.
Totally.
And they carry this tool belt of things that are in their family that already prepare them for what we're doing culinary school in this small Mayan town outside of Cancun. And, we're teaching them things, and most of these kids know how to cook like incredibly. And they cook for their family, their communities. But when you show them the formal path and codifying, the traditional technique of cooking, it becomes so much second nature to them. You're just like, there's so much talent here. These kids can go out, go work for a Fortune 500 company.
You're giving them the experience to become master chefs. So like you're taking kids that maybe might think, oh, I can work in a kitchen at this resort, to like, no, you can go for greatness.
Yeah.
I think this is amazing.
Yeah.
To me, it feels like your nonprofit is that you are the David Beckham of the food world, and you're going to kids and you're going, listen, with your lives, you can become great. And this is how I became great. Let me show you how you can become great. So don't just settle for being a busboy at a
Correct.
resort and stuff like that. Don't just settle for that.
Yeah.
Let me give you all the tools that you need to become great. I'm going to give you a diploma from the school. It's like, to me, it feels like that's a great service. I couldn't. Be
Yeah. And a lot of these kids go on and, they have the confidence. A lot of it's about confidence too. Having just a handful of people tell them that they can do
So
it,
much is
believe it.
confidence.
And a lot of them go on to start businesses and become leaders and executive chefs and things like that. And, just recently I had a close friend of mine who is currently the head chef of Noma in Copenhagen. I don't know if you heard of that restaurant, but
I have.
It's so, he's a Mexican chef, the first Michelin 3-star Mexican chef in the world. And he had a break, some time off in the restaurant. He said, "Hey, I'm coming back to Mexico." I was like, "Dude, you got to come by and spend some time with the kids." And, he came down to the school and basically did a little 2-day clinic with these kids and, talked to them and cooked to them. And they created a menu and things like this. And, the magic that was created by someone of his status to come and spend that time with him. But the other thing is that, Pablo's origins are just like theirs. He's a kid from Mexico City who said, what the fuck am I doing? I'm going to go do it too. And he had his own trajectory. And, any of these kids can, I think the big takeaway there was any of these kids can do what he did.
Go kill it.
And he showing up for them was evidence of that, Even though I live in Denmark, 100 million miles away, I'm here to show you guys that you guys possess the power and tools to go above and beyond anything else in this world.
Oído.
Yeah. Oído. Yes, chef.
Kick some ass, Oído. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, chef. Hey, peace. We're done.
Awesome.
Nice. What a pleasure.